Hello, everyone, and welcome to GreatLakes-TCG's YouTube channel. Today is a good day, isn't it, Devin?
Yes, it is. It is glorious. A great morning.
So, as you could tell, and we are also joined by a good friend, Jack.
Uh,
So, essentially speaking, you guys can already tell we are very happy with this ban list, mostly because here we kind of play a lot of green, red, purple cards, and as you can see, there's none of those on the ban list. Especially one particular purple card that I wanted to get, we'll have some discussions about that later. So just going over the ban list in case people haven't realized, we have Gecko Moria, we have Jinbei, Ice Age, and Raigo, or Kingdom Come. I can definitely understand why these were picked, especially seeing what's been topping over, you know, not an OP11, but maybe like more EBO2 and OP10 in the East. But definitely cards that well deserved. You guys agree, disagree?
Oh, absolutely. Uh, I've been screaming for Moria bans
I know.
since day one. I've always hated this card. Ice Age was always a card where I was like, this seems a little too much value for how much, like, for the cost of the Dawn. So I
Yeah,
was
I could see
like,
that for sure.
it was crazy that it took them this long to realize that. And then I was just sick of Dofi, and I was just hoping, praying that Jinbei was gone, and now
like
it's gone.
the way I see it is that if we're not going to ban leaders, these two cards were probably the best
Yeah,
options
between
outside of those two.
I feel like it hits the least amount of like banning Jinbei probably hits the least amount of decks if they want to keep the Dofi leader ability like viable, especially because they just had a starter deck printed. And remind me, was Jinbei in the starter deck?
No,
No.
the event pack one was,
Yeah.
but not that one.
Exactly. So I think that's one way to keep it viable. So you probably could have seen this one coming.
Look,
Moria, we already know.
and
Yeah, go for it.
and outside of that, it's like Ice Age. It, like you said, kind of been not a long time coming, but just kind of like a on the UG scale, it's pretty high.
No,
Kingdom Come is the
yeah,
only one that I'm not sure of that needed to go.
Oh,
no one's sure
yeah.
why this thing's on here, but it's okay. So yeah, just this is like talking about reactions from people. So this is actually Devin. Devin threw away his cards. He was happy to do this, by the way. Other people who are looking forward to playing blue black Usopp, they're kind of screaming just like he is in this photo. It seems like all his good matchups have taken a hit. BY Luffy, Lucci, Smoker, Anel, Dofi, and then all his bad matchups are on the up and up. And so that leads us to this little photo I thought was kind of funny. Like, why was Gum Gum Giant not involved in this, especially given like EBO2 and especially now in OP11 with the purple blue Luffy just being a menace over there. Um, I definitely can see
Listen,
this being banned. Like, I feel like this is now the premier ban target for a lot of people,
listen, man.
including me.
I don't question God's choices and God's blessings. I just play with what He gives me. And He gave me this giant to keep abusing, and I'm gonna use it all the way.
You know what? You and I both, I agree. If anyone asked me, I think this card should have been banned, but because it's not, let's use it.
So I'm saying, who
Jack,
am
any
I to
thoughts?
block His blessings?
Man, all I'm saying is like I'm gonna keep bringing up the UG factor.
I
This
know.
card's a 10 out of 10.
100%.
So,
100%.
like the feeling you have when your purple opponent has one Don active is unreal.
It's
it's
just
it's
the
stupid,
anxiety of like,
It's
actually.
do they
Yeah.
have it?
unreal. Even
Do
when
they
they're
not?
bluffing, like it's so unreal.
Yeah. So that brings us to a tier list of sorts, as you could tell. So this isn't exactly like where I think the car or the decks will land. This is more or less winners and losers of the ban list and things that might rear their ugly head back if things go their way. So obviously, I don't want to harp on this too much, but Purple Luffy dodged a big ban list bullet with the Gum Gum Giant, not being banned. And also, his two worst matchups arguably got shot in the foot. So Purple Luffy is definitely very happy up here. I don't think I have to explain this to anyone. Devin, I know you were very excited for this.
Yes, sir. So whenever they announced that the ban list was coming, and like more recently, I was like getting prepared for the new ban list, and I was like, well, if they hit this deck, what can I do in the deck to make it to where like I can start, focusing on the rest of the meta and not just Dofi.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I've made my changes on the list. So right now it's been doing really well in testing. So like hopefully it
Yeah.
actually works out. But yeah, overall, I mean, Purple Luffy's up right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy about it. So I can't.
And on top of it too, it's like outside of the bans, Blackbeard's also been on everyone's radar
Yep.
and just naturally has a great matchup into it. So
Mm-hmm.
even if Giant were to get banned, I feel like this deck would still be a contender just because of that.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. One thing to note, I will, and with or without Jack and Devin's assistance, be posting, probably deck list ideas or preliminary deck list for OP10 with the ban list in mind. So you guys can have that to look forward to in the next week or two. Now, moving over to Shanks, I know, Jack, you have been very high on particular Shanks builds recently, and so you want to talk about your experience with that?
Yeah, so with the inclusion of OP10, now that we have 3-drop Sanji and 4-drop Chopper, undeniably those are some of just the best generic red cards that we have access to,
Mm-hmm.
especially with just a naturally low curve. And on top of that, we even got ST21, I think it was the number.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we got the new 5 Luffy, which has quickly become probably my favorite card in the game.
It's actually really good.
Same.
I didn't
That card
expect
is
it to be
insane.
too, by the way. I didn't expect it to like it that much.
It plays so much better than how it reads. And as soon
Yes.
as you start playing with the card in either this or Zoro, any red leader, honestly, that you could play a Straw Hat package in, the card's unreal.
Yeah.
And so I think having a curve out of Nami into Sanji into that new Luffy is probably one of the best curve outs in the game.
Yeah. Speaking of Zoro, one, I think the card's great in Zoro. One, because you could attach the Dawn to the leader on 5 on curve, and you just kind of gain the benefit of it anyway. But also, Zoro has been coming back in strides. I think Blue Dofi held Zoro back tremendously. And so now the fact that you could probably play aggro decks, like mid range or even low range aggro decks again, now that Dofi's kind of not out of the picture per se, and we'll talk about him later. But I feel like Zoro has pretty good matchups into both like Blackbeard. That's why he's down here, by the way. Purple Luffy and even Shanks, if you're aggressive enough, and Shanks doesn't draw as well enough, because I don't think the control Shanks builds will be as relevant anymore as the aggro Shanks or maybe hybrids. And
Yeah.
I think you guys have been playing a lot of Zoros on ladder. So how has that been?
I mean, I'm going to bring up the 5 Luffy again. That card is unreal with Zoro. My first match of the day, my opponent had the 1 Dawn counter event. I forget what it's called, but lets you play an animal from the top 3. He had 2 on 2 Dawn and went search chopper into the blocker chopper into another search chopper. He had 12 mana worth of stuff on his board on his first turn.
It's insane.
Yeah, and on top, and that's not even including the new 5 Luffy. And I feel like if you're something like that into, say, Blackbeard, like the game's just over. And even as Shanks, if you're playing the new aggro stuff,
Yeah.
you can't deal with active things. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so
You gotta
it felt
swing into them.
very tough to be able to go after it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, on that note, that's why I think these are the big 3 winners of the meta. I think there's other cards that are like on the way up. So I think these decks in particular, and I don't want to go through every single deck and say like why I think they're good or bad, but mostly speaking, just to kind of highlight the big ones from this row. I think Bello Betty, obviously, it's an aggressive deck. It could do well into Blackbeard. It could do well into Purple Luffy. It's even done well into Shanks, surprisingly. And so I think that's one deck to look out for. Bonnie wins just for the fact that Lucci's not around anymore. I do think it's also good into Purple Luffy, and it can do good into Shanks and Zoro. So I think that's fine. Boa Hancock, I think, might be the new premier blue leader, mostly because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen it a little bit on ladder, but I think that it doesn't rely on Jinbei like Dofi does, and it could go play a lot into the removal heavy, the events, and be really annoying to kind of kill because it doesn't mind using the hand counter to keep its hand size low to benefit when it's like playing tempo and removing your board or bouncing your board.
Yeah, Bo is gonna be the current like premier blue like control deck because like
Yeah,
with all the like emerging aggro and mid range decks coming up from Dofi being nerfed
like
down
loose. Yeah,
and like Lucy being hit pretty hard, it'll be that deck that like has to deal with or answer the aggro format that we're thinking it's going to be.
I think it also depends like what flavors of aggro we end up seeing shake out from the meta.
agreed. Yeah, no,
Because
100%.
let's say if it is Zero, I think that new pre-release buggy would absolutely trounce that deck. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that just shuts off such a large portion of it that maybe even just having something like that could be the way to go. But we'll
Yeah,
just have to see how it shakes out.
Remind me, is the pre-release buggy? Is it
leader
locked?
locked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
I don't
No,
know.
but it's a 7 mana card, I believe.
Fair enough.
Yes,
And
it is
it
seven.
just
It's a
allows you to get
7/4.
it ahead of schedule.
Okay. Once again, these two are high on the radar for people. Lim, so Lim lost. I think it's one. Also, it's two worst matchups being like Lucci and Blue Dofi. So Lim can actually potentially do something. Especially the fact that you could now play like that 9 cost Zoro out, and it might live a turn. So that's actually really nice.
Yeah,
So I don't
I think
know.
my only thing,
Go for it.
my only gripe with Lim is like it's not a deck where like um it's heavy on like stay like counter ability, I guess I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feel like it stumbles to like any real aggression because like
It just gets
you're
5/6 checked to death.
yeah, it gets like 5 and 6 checked very easily,
I could
and
see
it
that.
does not like it does not handle that very well. So like I think the deck might
Good point.
So maybe we
struggle a
should drop
bit
it down
into
to
the
has
meta, but
potential.
we'll have to see. It'll take some testing on that matchup for sure.
Sure.
I think that's my only gripe was like
Sure.
maybe because of that.
And Jess, you
Nine
want to
Zora's a
talk
house
about
though.
Smoker? Because I know you
Yeah.
tested this extensively
Yeah, you tested
initially.
this a
Yeah.
lot, Jack.
Yeah. I'm a Fortress enjoyer. What can I say? But honestly, most of it was spent in the aggro lane, just
Yeah, trying to
having
cook
the
an
ability to
aggressive
cheat out
list.
bodies after a 5 smoker play was just really enticing. But once Shanks and Zoro started leaning more aggressive, they were just doing what you wanted to do better. Like having a 5 life lead lets you win the race. 4 life lead when you're also puking out your hand, you're never winning those races. So I think
Yeah.
the only way you can really play it is Fortress.
Which I
And
think could do well into these matchups actually. If it's a more aggressive meta, I think the Fortress build actually does very well.
I think so too. I think the
Yeah.
only thing that it could struggle with is that if you're playing the Straw Hat package, you generally have the EB chopper. And at least if you're competent with the deck, I think you're looking to set up that chopper before
Yeah.
their kid turn, and you can just shut them off.
Yep,
So
I
we'll have to
agree.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And now we have Doflamingo here under has potential. The reason why he's not in the loser category is I don't think the deck is actually dead. I think it definitely can win games and be aggressive and do what it wants to do. It's just not doing it to the point where it's being absurd with the amount of dawn and the amount of cards it sees and the amount of characters it floods on the board in one turn.
Like if you're wanting to play Dofi, what are you trying to run into? Like, are you still wanting to see Blackbeards, or
yeah.
like
I mean,
yeah,
because
I don't think that
the
matchup changes,
Blackbeard game
right?
plan never relied on Jinbei.
Yeah,
Because like you're never getting the Jinbei effect off, right? Like they're leader affecting from like the point where you
hmm
could Jinbei onwards. So like I think that matchup is still the same, and that didn't change. But the issue
it's
is your matchups into like uh Purple Luffy and Bonnie and Shanks and all that stuff got worse because you lost Jinbei. So you're a lot slower in like getting your board set up
yeah,
and doing all your plays. And now you're the only thing you can do is play stuff rested off your leader effect, which are easily swingable. And so it's, rather than Jinbei into an active Boa or like an active Weevil, and you still have a board, now you're like, only have this one thing on board and it could get swung at.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
also
it's,
Because
think
I feel like
Dofi still has
oh,
a
sorry,
winning.
go ahead.
No, you're good. I was gonna say I still think Dofi has a winning matchup at Zoro still, like despite all this, because I still
Yeah,
think
because you still have Bounce Law. Like that card is
that's
just
exactly,
insane into these
exactly.
matchups.
yes. But your Purple Luffy matchups got a lot worse, a whole lot worse,
Yeah.
a whole lot worse.
And so then talking to about Teach, the reason why Teach is here despite Dofi being gone is essentially the fact that Dofi was kind of holding back a lot of this stupid aggression. And so the fact that like look at there's like 3 or 4 different aggro decks now that are potentially going to be very prevalent. So it just makes Teach a lot harder to kind of justify, despite him doing better and getting all this support with Kuzan in that 6 cost event. I think he has potential. I'm not saying he's dead at all. I just don't think he's actually a winner from the ban list. I think he's kind of
Yeah.
like he got like a side grade. Now he has other problems to deal with.
Yeah, I think Teach's big issue is like I think it's a deck that thrives in a slower meta. And
Mm,
if we are moving into a faster paced meta with like more aggro and tempo, like mid range decks, I think Teach will definitely struggle because it wants to go long. It wants to get to that 10 Don comfortably where you're like at like 3 life or or so, you still have decent amount of hit cards in hand. Whereas, like, if we're in a faster meta, you can't set up your stuff very well, and you're going to be getting hit a lot, and you don't want to counter because, like, you're already going to be low on hand size. So, like, it's going to be rough.
mm-hmm.
But,
I do think
somebody will
there's
figure it out.
also an adjustment period because there's definitely a lot of Blackbeards on ladder that for like say Smoker or some of the new aggro variants, they don't necessarily know when to pitch exactly.
Oh
So
yeah.
for essentially like Shanks, he can be all over the place right now. But if something is like a lot of aggro base outside of like Chopper, he's probably not going to have the leader ability that often, like maybe once. And I think that people can adjust that way. But all I'm saying is, I was on Blackbeard, I was ready for it in OP10, and now I'm off. Like I almost want to move it to losers, but maybe that's a hot take.
No, it's, I can't feasibly put in a losers because I still think the deck has a lot it could add or
Get
tech
those
for
views,
it.
man. Rage bait.
No. So I don't like I said I don't want to go through every single leader here. So I'll go broad strokes. And if there's anyone you want to specifically talk about, let me know. Devin, you were on high
Put
on
it
red
in the
purple.
comments.
Exactly. But Devin, you were high on red purple Luffy. Do you feel like it still has potential now with the way the meta has changed?
Uh, I want to say yes in my heart, but
Mm-hmm.
I think with how many decks are able to just like 6 poke you in like red, especially like with Zoro, Shanks, Purple Luffy, even Bella Betty just like craps on you at one point. So like, I think it still has slight potential, but it has definitely dropped
All right, so I will put
quite a
that more
bit for
towards need
me
testing then.
in priority. Yeah. Plus, like the build just like has to change because of Dofi getting a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know what that build will be, so I don't know. We'll have to look into it and see.
One that I'm thinking about now, since we have all these leaders out, I just didn't even give it a second thought before. I feel like Uda gets a
Yes.
little bit better just because it does historically handle these kind of aggro decks well. Like if you're getting 5 checked into the ground, you just get to deal with board and draw a card every turn.
Exactly. It's like 2 cards a
Mm.
turn. It's great against aggression.
Whereas say something like Bonnie, you get to turn off one attack every turn, which is definitely good, but it's not as important because it's usually just turning off a 5 swing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm literally just thinking about that now because I'm seeing the leader.
Yeah, no, I actually really like Uta in general. I feel like the Uta versus Shanks matchup is actually kind of like 50-50, especially if they're more aggressive, like aggro varianted.
And if they're
Yeah,
cutting 10 Shanks, that
Yeah.
was a big part of the reason why.
I still
yeah,
think Purple Luffy might be hard for her if he sees his like curve, but if he doesn't, then I think like if you once you start dropping those like 9 cost Shanks, it gets so hard for Purple Luffy to keep up once you start winning
yeah.
board that way.
Plus, the best thing that Uda has going for it is that it's probably one of the most consistent leaders in the game.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
for
Like,
sure.
Oh, yeah.
it's never a bad. Like when Uda's good, it's usually really.
Dude,
Yep.
it still feels good to do that restand 3, like, rest 3 dawn, restand Uta swing,
Invincible.
I'm invincible. Exactly. Like 3 times a fucking turn. All right, so
I
moving
mean,
forward, just talking about the relevant decks, I want to talk about Lucci. I feel like Lucci, even though he got hit hard with the Moria and the Ice Age, I think, once again, I have faith that black decks are able to innovate enough. There's a Rebecca Hina Lucci still around. There's a lot of CP cards that could still get you where you need to be. It's just a Jack still around. It's just not going to be as free as it was before. So
Is Hina really the only minus that you're happy to play now? Because you don't have Great Eruption, you
no.
don't have Ennis Lobby, you don't have Ice Age. Like,
So
what are you playing now?
but you
you
still
play
have Tempest
Hina,
Kick, you
Tempest
still have
Kick,
Hina,
That's
you
fair.
still have Helmeppo,
Helmeppo.
you still have Subaru. So like you have ways.
And there's in arc,
Uh,
by the way, like the Khalifa or
yeah,
the Kaku.
yeah. Those like you still have ways to minus. Like so, you're not like out. Like yes, they took away your like easy minus, but like you also still
Yeah.
have like the Uta 2-drop that can minus. You have
Oh yeah, I completely
like I
forgot
said,
about that.
Helmeppo. You have Hina. Like there's ways like around playing the deck now, but like now you have more, freedom to innovate the deck and like make it to where you can still make it work without having to rely on Gecko. Like yes, Gecko was obviously really good. That's why it needed to be banned. So like now you're like, really having to work to get your KOs rather than just, paying 8 Don and hitting it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just
Yeah,
just because you hit 8 Don, you know.
because for a leader like Lucci, at least the biggest part about losing Gecko is that we're really only milling to meet the criteria for Tempest Kick rather than abusing it.
Yep.
And I really want, like, I think the deck just needs one more way to find a way to abuse it, and then
Mm-hmm.
I think it's golden. Because if you're
Mhm.
just doing it to just like, oh, I'm at 10 now, now it's kind of turning into a detriment rather than a benefit.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree too. Like I said, it's really going to. What I do think Lucci can find a way to stay meta relevant. I just
I
don't
agree.
think it's going to be S tier or
Yeah.
tier 1 even.
Yeah. But this
But
is all opinionated, obviously. So
yeah,
like, and we have to go into the format and see
and
like
see
this
what
ban list
happens.
isn't, you know,
Because that
isn't
4
even
cost
in
Lucci's
effect
still
until
really
April
good.
1st. So I mean, all of it is just our opinions as of right now because we haven't seen anything. It's just off of our
Wait,
initial
is it
thoughts on
actually, is that the official date, April
Yeah, April
1st?
1st,
April 1st.
just to mess with
Dude,
us.
is there a non-zero chance that that's an April Fool's joke? Is that what you're telling me?
Just for them to sprinkle Gum Gum
Uh,
There's a
Giant onto the.
non-zero chance that this is just all a dream.
Imagine. So then, just if there's anyone else want to talk about any decks in the needs testing category, before I jump over the losers real quick.
no.
Alrighty.
Tired of seeing a Sanji at pre-releases. Red Green Law. I want to try an Ebio too, with the 1-drop Nami. But
Yeah,
that's it.
I think there's like a hybrid zoo list, like a zoo straw hat list for Red Green Law that I saw.
Hey, you get the new 5 Luffy. You get to bounce that in. That's all I'm
Yeah.
Get
saying.
5 Luffy. You get the Sanji.
Well,
You get
it could work.
the 4-drop Zoro. There's things you get. Like you get a lot of good stuff from that
But if
starter
you're
deck.
running into aggro Zoro or Shanks, it's just you're a 4-life lead, man. It's just not looking good.
Yeah,
It's tough. It's
it,
tough.
it takes testing. It takes testing. That's why it's here. All right, going to losers. Why do I think Nami's a loser? Because aggro is the name of the game, or at least I believe aggro is going to be the name of the game for our foreseeable set, which always kind of bodes negatively for Nami. Buggy. So the reason why Buggy was even considered decent was because it had a really good matchup into both Blackbeard and into Dofi, supposedly. And now that it's losing its Dofi matchup and it's not that well, like I mean, I don't think Blackbeard's gonna be doing as well as we all think it will. So Buggy might not do as well. Usopp, we've kind of already went over the meme right here. Obviously, he's not doing well. And Smoker, unfortunately, Tyler might hit me. Our friend Tyler, he is a avid Smoker believer, player, lover. And he's been testing all morning. I think for like the last 4 hours, 3 hours.
He
He's
has
been
been on
testing.
since I woke up at 7 a.m. He has been in the
He's been
Discord.
in the Discord
He's
trying
been
to
there since
figure out.
7 a.m.
And
EST.
he's given up. So at least for today, he's given up. Maybe he'll come back later. He does not think the deck is doing that well.
I will throw out. I think just for the black decks in general, kind of like we were talking about for Luchi needing a way to abuse it. They just need to figure out what their new top end is. That's all. Like there's so
Yeah.
many under tested cards like Stussy, and you can go back to Isho and all these cards that I think once that gets honed in a bit more, then I think you'll be looking. Because Smoker does have a lot of good tools. Tashigi is a hell of a card.
Yeah, no, like for sure. And unfortunately, like I just wanted to touch base on our new leaders, Caesar, Clown, and Sugar. 4 life leaders in a very aggro based meta, which I don't think will do well for them specifically. Even though Sugar likes being attacked, there might 4 attacks a turn might be too much. And finally, just going over to the get lost category. Essentially, I don't think these leaders are potentially viable anymore. Mostly because BY Luffy will need to shift over to playing like the way it's kind of was intended to play, and I don't think that's good enough anymore. Maybe back then, before they were abusing Moria, they could have played something a little bit more aggressive, but now I don't think it's that good. And a friend of ours, Max, was spending a good majority this morning trying to figure out how to make that work. And now
He has also come to the conclusion that he's just giving up.
And now without Raigo, I feel just has no way to contest with Shanks and Luffy, and definitely Blackbeard. Like, I just don't see any version of it.
And Bonnie at this point.
And Bonnie
they have
at
no
this
way
point.
to get rid of anything.
Yeah, so any deck that could establish anything larger than like a 6 cost or 7 cost just kind of will make it very hard for Enel to do anything.
They're just going to be deer in the headlights when they play 9 Zoro.
Yeah, straight up. This is self-explanatory. They lost their boss monster, the main monster their whole being was playing around.
Yeah, these are the 8-drop Moria decks.
Yeah, straight up.
Like,
the Moria abusers.
Literally.
And so that kind of concludes this. Obviously, we'll see how the meta shapes up. We'll see what actually ends up being good, bad. Are we right? Is it going to be very aggro heavy, at least initially, and then it might shift over to something else? We'll see.
And we can revisit this later.
Oh,
and
yeah,
just
for
see
sure.
like what we got right, what we got wrong kind of deal. So
all right.
We'll just again, these are preliminary thoughts after or on the day of the ban list, just thinking, what is going to be good, what's not, and then we can come revisit later.
Yeah. Any final words, Jack?
Play 5 Luffy, card good.
All right, thank you guys for joining us. Please leave any questions or comments down below, and I'll try to answer them. Thank you.